All right, everybody. On today's episode of PincheAls Garage, we're going to learn how to put some VR6 pistons and rods in, and we're going to upgrade the hardware for boost. So let's get to work because this is PincheAls Garage. So to prep this DIY, this is what you need. Piston rings, brand new upgraded ARP rod bolts, and new rod bearings. This is all needed for your boost application. So we'll get you part numbers right now. All right, so part numbers for the rods right here. CR6764XPC. All right. These aren't oversized. These are factory size rod bearings from King. We got Getz piston rings. Part number 08-501900-00. Factory size, pretty much piston rings. So these are standard size. Don't freak out when you see all these numbers. These are all the diameters for each one. Standard. We're not going oversized. So that's what we got with these. And then the last but not least for boost, these guys. These are pretty much forged bolts for your rods. Part number C2-00-02. There's another part number down below. 204-6006. Pretty much, I don't know which is the ones they use for UROTuning and the actual manufacturer part number, but they're there. This is a need. This is a must-have for boost applications on a VR6. And the main reason why, because this is actually the weak point on the VR6 rods, is the bolts. They're torque to yield bolts. These are not. These are pretty much torque to spec and call it done. So make sure you guys use this before you use anything else if you're going to start boosting your VR6 engine. All right, and then obviously a bottle of assembly lube. You're also going to need a specific tool. You're going to need a piston ring grinder, so you can oversize your piston rings or gap your rings, in other words, before you start installing anything. So we're going to gap our rings first, and then we're going to get going to installing our pistons and our rods. All right, so doing some research, doing some internet stuff and whatnot, getting multiple pretty much advice from everybody. Our piston ring gap. So from the factory, you're looking at the oil ring is at 0.017, and then the compression and then the scraper ring are at 0.018 gap. But that's for factory specs, factory temperatures, and factory power. That's not what we're doing here. We're doubling the car's power to almost 400 horsepower. So we gotta double up on the ring gap. So we're gonna go all three rings at either 0.28 or 0.30, depending on pretty much how much we scrape and where we're at within that specification. The bigger gap allows for bigger thermal expansion, so when the engine gets really hot, the ring gaps won't pretty much touch and cause problems over time. It can cause premature wear, can cause a lot of other fun, damage to your motor. So we want to gap the rings even more. Doubling the gap is a very, very safe method for boosting an engine, especially for very, very high boost. It keeps the engine pretty much happy over time. Now, there's a downside of going a bigger gap. Number one, you're going to burn a little bit of oil on startup, and that's it when the engine is actually cold. So probably within the first 3 to 5 minutes of the engine starting, you're going to burn a little bit of oil. Again, because the gap is so much bigger from factory, there's going to be a little bit of blow by. You should be okay. You got to factor that in because you're going to double the heat. You're going to double everything on here. So you have to double it up. And I know it's kind of weird, but that's just how it works with these engines, especially VR6s. The good thing, though, with the VR6, they heat up very, very quickly. So it's kind of a win-win in this scenario. So what we're going to do, we're going to get our first ring. And this is going to be the oil ring. Now this is the pretty much the back of the motor. This is the front. I'm counting them: cylinder 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We already gapped 1 and 2, 6 and 5. Now we're down to 3 and 4. So we're going to start on number 3 here. You're going to put the ring in. You're going to grab your piston. Oil up the piston as much as you can so it slides in nice and smooth. I use assembly lube. You want to go down, and you want to get about a 1/4 inch down from the gap here to the top to the bottom. Take it back out. That gets you a little bit about halfway, maybe a little bit further down. So you'll see here, we got it on 0.025, and then we stacked a, what is this, 0.004, so that'll give us about 0.29 gap. Just enough. You can, again, this gives you just enough to mess around with your grinding. And then we're going to gap this really quick. Obviously it's going to be nice and tight, so we're going to scrape these down. So I give it about 4 turns per side, and then gap and then do it again. Double checking your gap size multiple times. So we use a scraper, we gap this, we scrape both sides 4 turns, and then give it a try again. You're going to repeat the process as many times as possible until you get the gap size you want. Isn't that right, Dom?
Yes, sir.
There's more. Bikes are really weird on how you gap them.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I'm doing research on how to gap piston rings on them. You don't follow the same math as like a normal motor. Because I think they have 4 rings.
Technically, yes. So the oil rings on the bikes, they're not like these, where they're kind of one ring.
Mm-hmm.
So on, show you once you pull that back out.
It's a little bit harder to gap because of the second blade. So it's a little bit more trial and error than normal. Alright. We are gapped. It's a little tight, but that's fine. I'd rather have it tight than loose. So
So the oil ring on bikes, they're not solid. They don't have those middle pieces.
mm-hmm.
2 separate rings with the spring in the middle. So that's what makes it 4 rings, kind of.
Yeah, because I was looking up the piston ring set for this thing. It's like there's 4 rings. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
All right, so we got the oil ring done. Now we're gonna do the, what is it? The scraper then compression, right? Or is it? Yeah, scraper then compression. So this is a scraper ring. This is what pretty much pushes the oil that passes the oil ring back down. And it also acts as a secondary compression ring, pretty much. Now this one is actually almost a spec to my .28 spec, so we're gonna grind this one a little bit, not as much. For some reason, the scraper ring has been a little bit more on the bigger side than all the other rings in my set. It's kind of weird. Ah, the trash here. I gotta clean up. If you do have to go down, I would head out, dude. You know, I know you got stuff to do, but let's figure out how we order stuff for your. No, not order. Let's set a date tomorrow or Tuesday, and let's go through all my stuff and see if we can find you the parts that we need.
And then we can also try and figure out the shop stuff.
Yes, that too. Because we gotta get up. I have to clear out that whole section so you can get access to it. Because without getting access to it, you can't do anything with it.
Yeah.
All right, this fits. Now you'd be asking, why is Al using factory rods and pistons? Because VR6 rods and pistons are a lot stronger than 1.8 PT rods and pistons, just so you guys know. It has been said out there that VR6 rods and pistons can hold up to a decent amount, anywhere from 400 to 500 horses on easy boost. Not super fast boost, but like a nice slow spooling turbo. So just that's a word of advice for you guys if you guys are going to want to build up VRT and you want to keep your power down, say around 400 to 500, you can stick with all stock internals. All right. So now we're going to finally do the final gap on the compression ring. See if we got it. Yep, we got it. See? Holds it in place. It's good. It's nice and snug. You don't want a loose gap, so we got that. So I'm on 1, 2. We just did number 3. Now we're going to do piston number 4. We're going to repeat the process one more time so you guys can see. But I'm not going to talk. I'm just going to show you guys. All right? Oh, and this is the tool that I'm using to gap them with, just so you guys know. This is a little ring gap tool that we got online. Super cool. It's got a nice little wheel on it. Very, very good tool. This ring is definitely not gapped. Yep. So this one we're going to do 4 turns on each side. 2 more turns on each side. Nope. Haha, got it. It's a little loose, but I think it's just right. So this is the last ring. This is the pretty much the compression ring, which is the top ring. We just popped it in. I took it out of the packet fresh, popped it in. It has a gap of 0.29. So pretty much my gap that I have it set, it's already gap for it out of the package. So this is something we always have to do, guys, whenever you're building a motor, is check every single piston ring during your assembly process, because you never know when you get a ring that is literally perfect right out of the package. Now, if this was a stock build, this ring would be useless. Actually, no, I'm not gonna say useless. It would be pretty much maxed out. This is like pretty much the max spec that you can reach for a stock ring, for a stock setup. So we kind of lucked out on this one. So this is the last one. So this was cylinder number 4. Now that we have them all done, now we're gonna pretty much get the rod bearings, pop them on, compress them in, and get this motor completely assembled. All right, so quick update. Once again, I've confirmed with a lot of people who build VR6 turbos and a couple friends of mine to confirm my gap, my piston ring gap, and we are solid. So if you're going to be turbo in your VR6, a quality gap would be around 0.028 to about 0.030. So keep it within that gap range and you'll be set for boost. All right, guys, now let's get ready to install some pistons. All right, we're back. So I went super quick to O'Reilly's, bought this cheap little tool. You'll see right here, it's pretty cool. It's got a little gap here, so you put the rings in it and you just spread the rings just slightly and pop them on. A lot less work to get piston rings on. So now we got our set of pistons here. Now we gotta properly orient them. So we're dealing with cylinder number 1, which is this guy. The pistons have to be facing inward with this gap. You'll see here, there's the dome that's in here, or the, I guess, recess. This piece faces in, all right, this little divot. So you'll be putting them in like this, all right? Now, I have the compression ring, the oil ring here. And then we're gonna move the scraper ring over to this side, the gap on this side. And then we'll put the compression ring on the opposite side. Okay? You always want to put your rings, the gap, as far away as possible from each other. That way, when you pop them on, they are oriented in a way where they don't ever meet up with each other. Okay? Just like that. Now I have this 81 millimeter pretty much sleeve here, piston ring sleeve, which is tapered. It's got an opening up here that's tapered, and it's also cut for 15 degrees so you can put these pistons in. And you'll see that. It's a little dusty right now, but I'll clean that up right now. But that's how you get this one, these piston rings, these pistons in this motor. Without this pretty much sleeve, you'll never get the pistons in. I'm giving you guys the heads up. You need this specific tool. I just Googled it and I was able to find a VR6 piston ring tool sleeve. Cost me about 70, I think 65 or 70 bucks. I was thinking by the time I was done, I was almost at 100 bucks shipped. But 100% worth it. This is my third VR6, so this has been used already more than enough times to save me a headache. So, big heads up. All right. So, I'm going to show you guys how these rods connect. So, make sure you see there's a notch here and a notch here. That's the matching side to your rod. Install the bottom bearing and the top bearing. Pretty straightforward, nothing crazy. Okay. I'm not gonna lube these up. I'm gonna lube this. I'm actually gonna lube both of them. Just a light coat, and then we'll soak them again when we flip the engine over and we actually put the top of the rod bolt rod cap on. All right, guys. So what we're gonna do is, since we don't mix any of the rod bearings, the rod caps, we're gonna install one, flip it over, and bolt it down slightly by hand. And then go to and pretty much do them all that way as best we can. We can't torque these to spec the moment we put them in. You could, because it doesn't really, they're all separate from each other. So that is an option. It's up to you guys. I would oil up the cylinders just a little bit if you're going to rotate them up and down. That way they're not moving as much on metal to metal. That way you just save yourself a little bit of a headache there. So our rod bolts here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So that's everything we need for this whole job. These go on factory specifications. These don't have a very special spec besides using the provided assembly lubricant. Okay, guys? I don't remember these having anything special needed for them. I will double check that in just a minute. Now, I do not have a stretch gauge, so as per ARP, if you don't have a stretch gauge, torque all your bolts to 40 foot-pounds, and that's it. Since this engine is not going to be seeing like crazy severe use, rod bolts again, brand new. I'm excited because these are pretty much what strengthens your motor for boost. And again, these go on at 40 foot-pounds. All right, cylinder number 1, piston number 1, confirming our orientation. So we're going to use the oil gap, the oil ring on this side, compression ring on this side. No, scraper ring, compression ring, all away from each other. We're going to slide it down, making sure we have our tool here. And here we go. Make it easier to just do it like this. Okay. Dang it. I want to spin this. One thing I don't like. Remember. Okay. So this is this way. Yep. Come on, buddy. And we're gonna get a wood mallet and just smack it down. I think we're on the wrong angle. I think it's the other way around to push it in. I'll confirm it right now. No, this is right. Just gotta hold it. There you go. Piston number 1 installed. Whoop, 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 whoop. Look how pretty she looks. Looks so pretty. All right. So once you have the first one installed, rotate the engine. So we gotta get that main bearing in there. Oh, other way. So now we gotta find the main bearing, which is right here. I mean the crank. Got all that lube, that goopy lube, and then rotate it until it fits. So what you want to do is rotate the crank high up, like right there, okay? And you're going to push your piston up. And when you're pushing up, grab like a little flathead here and just guide the piston into the crank. Try not to twist or anything like that. You just want to help it go up. Once it's high enough, what you got to do now, remember the orientation of that little notch that we were showing you last time? You might have to push it back down so you can see where the notch is at. find it. It's a little difficult to see. Get my little flashlight here. Let me confirm it. It's bugging me. Okay. So the notch on the rod is right over here. So this rod cap has to go in like this. We follow this little notch right here. Okay, guys? So now that I know where it's at, I can push the piston back up. And this is where, if you don't remember this is what happens. Okay, so there's that. Slap on some assembly lube. Rod cap. And then you put your new rod bolts. Remember, you gotta use this special lubricant that they provide. Do not use oil or anything like that. This is what's provided from the manufacturer. So use that. These have to go down to 40 foot-pounds, all right, guys? Get my socket. Hand tighten these. Do not torque them down immediately. You want them all the way down by hand. Get them nice and snug. All right, and then torque them down to 40 foot-pounds. Repeat the process 5 more times. Too small. Too big. There it is. That's the right size. That's 11 12-point socket. One more check. 40. 40. Done. First piston installed. All right, let's go back around and do it. So I like to rotate my crank a little bit high like this because when I put the piston in, I don't want the piston to hit here or score the surface right here. We want this surface as clean as we can get it. Cylinder number 2, and just repeat the process all the way down. All right. Let's get the next piston going. This is cylinder number 2. We're going to show you with the ring, show you how to do it with the tool. The new tool I picked up for 12 bucks, this little guy right here. So, you're going to put the oil ring first, this one in here first. This one's really quick. Now what I'm doing is I'm going to put it on the opposite side of the dome. Okay? So that's where it's going to sit. This the gap that comes open on this side in comparison to here. And then I'm going to put the opening of this over here. All right? Don't want it over here. I want it over here. So we're gonna go, open it up nice and slow. Kind of take your time. If it doesn't go in all the way, just don't worry about it. You can do it on your own. Just like that. Okay? So now we got the oil ring done. Now we're going to do the scraper and then the compression. This one, I'm not going to worry about orientation until I put it in. Just put it on. All right, that guy's in. One more. Here we go. Okay. As we spoke about before, I'm going to be putting the oil ring facing out, the scraper ring over to my left, and then the compression ring over to my right. Just like that. So you want each gap as far away from each other as possible. So I got my oil ring in the center, my scraper ring on this corner, and my compression ring over here. Okay? So we're on piston 2. And remember, every piston, the dome faces in towards the block. So this guy is facing this way. This one's going to be facing that way. So in, out, like that, back and forth. But they're always facing in. All right. So for my piston ring sleeve. The narrow part, or the part that's not as thick, is going to be facing out, and then the tapered or the really high side faces in. That's how we get them in the motor. And then I got to remember the notch, a little rod notch, is on the inside, so over here. So when I get to putting the main cap, the cap back on, I can find it. So that's also important to your guys' install, right? Remember where this guy is sitting, and for me, it's facing out towards the out of the motor right there. Okay, just hold this down and just bonk it right in. Hitting something. Clean his main bearing now. Rod bearing. This is where you gotta catch yourself, because I turned the piston just enough that it didn't go in line with the crank. So now it's stuck right here, and this is why I shouldn't have turned the crank. That's the issue that I have. Right there, it's right there. It should go in now. I have to flip it over, clean the rod bearing, and hopefully I can get it on there without having any damage. This is where you guys got to be super careful when you do your builds, because if the rod isn't perfectly aligned down the middle, it's going to want to go sideways and trail whatever it hits on the inside of the engine. I'll show you what I mean. So not everything goes perfect, you know? Not supposed to. So right here, I'm going to rotate the crank over to my right. I'm going to push the piston up. Now it's centered. I'm going to push it up, and I'm going to be able to slide the rod bearing in, and then I'm going to be able to pop it in, because I do that, or I push it back out and then I do it right again. So it depends on the difficulty. I'm going to try it right now and see what happens. So I want the rod to come out right here, straight up. Right there. Just high enough. I gotta clean the rod bearing. Didn't see any damage, so we're good on that. Okay, now it's, there we are. Pretty much got to hold it, so when you push the piston up, it goes in straight. Like that. A little bit of lube. I lube the cap. I'm lubing the crank. Here's the notch. Matching it with the notch. So the piston needs to go up a little bit more. There we go. There we go. Set your torque wrench to 40 foot-pounds. Done. Woo! That's right, Mr. Moo Moo. Brr. All right. It's piston number 2. Now this one is a lot more vital to get even straighter in because there's like 2 metal plates to line that rod up. So you got to be very careful when you get this guy in, alright guys? This one's going to be a little bit trickier. Actually, yeah, this is probably the worst one out of all of them, is the middle one. And we are now done with our bottom end of our block. Next video, we're going to show you guys pretty much how to get all the oil system ready to go, because there's actually gears involved with your oil system. So we got to get that taken care of. So that will be next. Once we do the oil system, oil pump, all the gears that are required for the oil system to work correctly will be next. This video, again, is brought to you by UROTuning and all our Patreon members. Here's a word from our sponsor. PincheAls here. And we need to order some parts here, and the best place on the web is UROTuning.com. So let's get to work. Look at that. It already saved my previous order history. So we're looking for a clutch, and we need to find the right one for our car. So let's go to products. we're going to go to drivetrain, click on clutches, and you will see here all the different awesome options we have available for our 12 valve VR6. Now, since we're going to be making this car a turboed VR6, we want something with some oomph. So one of the brands that I really pride myself in offering and recommending as well is South Bend, Spec, Exetti, and what is the other brand? Saks. Those are the brands I truly, honestly respect and pretty much love. If you can get some Clutch Masters, that's another brand that I really like, and they're also made in the USA as well, so that's even better. But for today's build, we're going to need a South Bend clutch. We definitely have to think about what stages or what type of requirements we need based on our build. Now, since we're going to be doing a VRT, we're looking anywhere from 350 to 400 plus horsepower. So a stage 1 and a stage 2 ain't going to cut it. We need to go to stage 3 and up. Now, on a stage 3, it does specify in their description here at 600 to 800 foot-pounds of torque. This is what we need. Now, you'll see here, this is even better. They even give us a rating right here on what we're going to be getting based off the clutch that we're going to choose. Now, a stage 2 is designed all the way up to 350 pounds of torque. I don't know if that's what I want safely, because what if we do go over? I'd rather have a stage 3 and up and be able to handle the power that we need. Now, if you're going to definitely be doing a lot of hard driving, you definitely want to look into the stage 3 and high, like endurance or even drag race, where you can actually see that they can handle a lot of performance out of these guys. So think about your clutch, think about what you need before you make that purchase, because sometimes you might end up regretting it and you can't return it. However, UROTuning.com makes this easy, and it gets to the point on what you need when you do your builds. Thanks for watching this, and let's get back to our project.
All right, now that's over with. Now, one thing you guys got to keep in mind with your engine, if this engine is going to sit around and be stored while you're working on building the rest of the car, don't be shy to pretty much cover this with a rag, a really dry cloth. Lubricate the cylinder walls with oil on the bottom where the crank is located. As long as you don't rotate the crank while it's sitting, then slap some assembly lube everywhere. Use your fingers, dig it in there. You want to prevent as much rust as possible while the engine's sitting. Anywhere that's like raw metal, you want to cover it with any type of lubricant. Again, it's going to prevent any rusting of your engine while it sits. This engine's not going to sit very long anymore. We're getting ready to slap on the new head gasket, the head, and all that later in the next episode. So stay tuned for so much more content, guys. Thank you for watching again. As always, here at PincheAls Garage, we're going to break, we're going to fix, and we're going to repeat. Peace out, everyone, and you guys have a wonderful day. And enjoy the credits. Here are all the people that supported this build.